Good morning, everybody, and I'm pleased to be here. And thank you to Lucas Usman for inviting me here, because it's a very exciting session today and tomorrow, and even more exciting the skiing. So it's a very nice conference. So there were very nice three presentations on the experimental side of stress strain affair ahead of the crack tip. And I was doing experiments for the half of my life, or even more, and when I went to Canada, they made me theoretician, so I trying to calculate. So I never admit that in Poland, because in Poland, in my country, I was considered to be creeping experimentalist. So I kind of on both sides, and I'm really excited that this is going to be recorded. It is the first time my performance was recorded 40 years ago in Sicily when I played accordion at the festival in Messina. And it was a very successful one. I almost got married in Sicily. So now it's over. All these opportunities are over. So the main goal is very similar to what the first speaker was talking about in the morning, that I would like to just analyze and find out what's going on simultaneously ahead of the crack and behind the crack tip, without being biased towards closure exists or don't exist, doesn't exist, and what's going on with overload, after overload. In America, I am sponsored by Office of Naval Research for the last couple of years by Vasudevananda, who don't like very much closures. So I am kind of quite a politician, because I get money from them, but at the same time I try not to say that closure doesn't exist. And so far it's working. So here you see.
You want this off then?
So what I am saying is closure does exist, but maybe it's not doing what we think it does. So it's not the same. So what I did, what I wanted to know actually is to compare, using finite element code, the stationary crack in identical boundary condition and the fatigue crack, which has some history. Because we cannot do it experimentally, because you cannot produce fatigue crack without a history. And then we'll see, what is affected, what's the differences. And in order to do that, we wrote our own code, finite element. Because when you run abacus answers, you actually don't know what's going on exactly there. In terms, how the error is handled, how you jump from one element of the stress strain curve to another, what's going on in the corner. So we did everything ourselves. And then we ran the constant amplitude, variable amplitude. I was moving the crack. Using specimen like that, but the compact tension, we were trying to model the 4140 steel, which was tested later by my colleagues Mark Croft and Sakalakos using the neutron diffraction method. So we were getting even some experiments. So this is the stress strain curve, and as you see the red linear elements, that's how I was using that stress strain curve in my finite element analysis. And here is that mesh, only part of it, because what we did, is there any pointer here?
The red button on that one.
Oh yes, there is one. Okay, so what we did, we actually made most of the analysis when the crack reached the 38 millimeters, but we started propagating it from 35 to build the history. But because of that, I was making them elements smaller and smaller and smaller. So when it came to that point when I was taking of the data, that was very fine mesh, and contact elements were introduced there. Everything we knew was going on, so we knew everything except the truth. And My colleague did a very nice graphics together with it, and everything was written in Fortran because he's old-fashioned man. He doesn't believe in C++. We have to know exactly what's going in the computer memory just to be sure. So he was even showing by colors on which part of the stress strain curve that region is. And the first element, second, and third, so you could see how the memory was working when there. Of course, that took us, I am ashamed to say, you don't believe how much the calculation took time. It is plane strain, elastoplastic cyclic analysis with incremental plasticity using Mru's model, because Mru is my professor and my colleague, so I am biased, of course. This is the best model I know. It was corrected by Garrett Lilbit. So this is the famous plasticity surfaces proposed by Mru, and you translate them in the stress space. That's why you model that Bauschinger effect, memory, and the cyclic loops, and so on. It's a lot of fun doing it. And this is how we did the entire program. So I started from 35 millimeters, and then we applied a cycle, as you see, 10 increments per one reversal, but actually there were more iterations, because if that increment went over from one element of the stress strain curve to another, so we had to back up everything and find such a smaller increment here that you ended at the end of linear elements, and then we went further on. So there was a lot of iterations between. This is how we were inputting, but the computer was dividing the stress strain curve even smaller elements just to follow exactly what was given, because otherwise we would accumulate a lot of error. Then unloading was the same way, then reloading, and then we kept the load constant, and we were releasing the first node incrementally again. So that's why the multi-axial incremental non-proportional plasticity was incorporated, and we were doing it cycle by cycle until we reached with smaller and smaller elements. So there were huge amount of those increments, because we reached that point, and then I analyzed what's going on here, what was going there, then we went up, return, we made one cycle, and I analyzed what's going over there. And later on we progressed it further to the maximum retardation point in order to see what was going on after that. Just let me see whether I mention everything here. Yeah. So let's see. So this is that blue reversal here, and you see the displacement field behind the crack tip at different load levels. Now the first problem was, what should be the smallest element? So I know that I modeled the geometry of the crack tip correctly. And I didn't know, so a couple of years ago we solved that problem analytically for elastic body, that I formulated the crack problem as a moving boundary problem, so the final boundaries were satisfied on the final geometry, and that way I could derive the relationship between K factor and the radius of the crack tip. The only problem is that I was using small theory elasticity, because if I used large deformations, I couldn't solve. So therefore the stress at the crack tip, blunted crack tip analytically, was equal to the modulus of elasticity. And when I wanted to publish the paper, one of the reviewers was claiming that my solution is unrealistic because I got very high stress, which is equal to modulus of elasticity. So I responded, you like K factor, when it goes to infinity, it's okay. But when it's finite, it's not okay. But anyway, I believe the displacement fields are okay. So this is how I chose the element size. It was extremely small at the end, around 100 or 200 of a millimeter, just to make sure that it was few times smaller than the theoretically possible radius which I calculated analytically. And so we see here, so this is the displacement field at the maximum stress, that the maximum load, and here is at the minimum load at 0, because we were cycling it from 0 to max. So what I see here, that at least numerically, opening behind the crack tip. It's a hole, and that was staying always. I couldn't get rid of it. There was a contact here, and there is a contact like between these elements here, but I don't know whether this is a real something or it's coming from this huge rotation when I'm using the small deformation theory. Now, when I calculated the pressure here, or the nodal forces, they were pretty small. So I'm not sure whether it's a real closure or not, but let's look here. So behind the crack tip, there is a hole, and experiments actually done by nice photoelasticity with a high resolution in Australia by Lewis Jones, show that there is emptiness. He just didn't see anything behind the crack tip. It was black hole, like nothing was happening in terms of energy and dissipation. And this is that famous solution which was rejected, but I published it. I have my friends, and I am on editorial board, so if you join us myself. And this is a good one, they're mathematically correct. So it's nice, isn't it?
So, sorry, Greg, but the distances on the horizontal?
Yeah, this is the crack tip, and this is the distance. So this is over 2/10 of a millimeter.
Okay.
That's the distance. Sorry?
This is the closer part.
No, the crack tip is here, that's the opening, and the stress field will be here. Yes.
This opening we have also seen experimental, and it must occur. Otherwise, you would never see a closure behind. In furthermore, because you need this volume here for the representation after.
This is the emptiness. So I concluded that I can model the crack as a crack with a radius always, empty hole. Even if you apply now compression, you will get a nice hole here with the concentration of 3. Just, that's what my computer says and my model. Okay. Now, we went to the comparison. I said, okay, let's little bit zoom it. So what you see here is a 0.5 millimeter distance. And what I did the same calculation for a crack without history, like what I called virgin crack, which was elastoplastic, everything the same, except that that crack was not propagated. Only I started with 38 millimeters. So what you see here, this is the displacement field for the fatigue crack, and that one is displacement field for that virgin crack at maximum load. When we went to the minimum load, again, here is that displacement field at the 0 load of the fatigue crack, and this is the blue, the virgin crack. So when we compare them, little bit I zoom everything, you see very clearly that this is that kind of ideal crack without history. This is crack with history. There are two different displacement fields at the same K, the same crack length, everything the same. So if there are two different displacement fields, my conclusion is that there are two different stress intensity factors. So therefore, the history of the crack is affecting not only the minimum but the maximum as well. Should we take it into account later or not is disputable, but that's what I am finding, and this is in agreement with your experiments. I almost jumped when I saw it, because the first time, the Canadians and British agree over the ocean. And I think this is because the Polish scientist is negotiating. Okay, so then we went ahead of the crack with stresses. So here we see the stress distribution, the stress component normal to the potential crack plane. And this is what we call the virgin crack, the blue without history. This is maximum load, this is minimum load. And here we see the stresses of the fatigue crack. So this is at 0 load, and this is at maximum load. So when we just take that region close here, we see very clearly that the minimum didn't change too much, but the maximum changed. So the stress range has changed ahead of the crack tip, and probably the strain range also has changed. So now, from looking at that, I would say that if I want to model something, I should chop off the K max in order to get to the K effective, instead of raising K minimum as closure model, people are saying. Of course, when I said first so, my sponsor was very happy. Jim Newman said that I am talking nonsense. But we negotiated with Jim and it's okay now. But you see, this is only finite element. It means it doesn't need to be necessarily 100% true, but qualitatively gives up. So what I did next, I said, let's go to a point ahead of the crack tip and see what is the stress-strain response. So I chose, as you see, the fourth node in order to be away from that first element which was corrupted so much because of huge rotation and deformation. So this is the hysteresis loop for the fatigue crack, and this is the hysteresis loop for the stationary. So again, what it shows here that the minima here are not much different, but the maximum does change. And the results were pretty consistent throughout that case, but then it was interesting to see what's going before and after overload. So we applied the overload and I propagate the crack by 1 or 2 elements. And we look at that, and that was surprising to me because this is the displacement field after overload, and this is the displacement field at the minimum load after overload. So this is the maximum, this is the minimum. And what you see here, that region, see after reaching certain load level, the displacement here was getting a little bit less, but this region, the displacement seem to be the same, they don't move. So now, if you measure relative change of displacement behind the crack tip, you will assume that this is closure. Because the opening displacement doesn't change anymore. But that doesn't mean that the crack is closed, according to this analysis. So very often I think we may, I'm not sure whether what I'm saying is 100% sure, but I think that very often the experimental measurements which we make, measuring the change of displacement, when there is no change of displacement, we say it's closure. But it doesn't need to be necessary. It can be just that the plastic zone is becoming so hard that it doesn't deform anymore. And why? That was kind of puzzle to me. Why bloody hell it? And when I look at the stress, which I show later, there was something strange going on. The plastic zone did not deform. And the reason is, when I found at the end, is that there was a huge change of triaxiality. I started with plane strain, but when I did overload, underload, there was so much triaxiality that it was almost hydrostatic stress state. And as we know, triaxial stress state does not allow for any plasticity. It's very hard. And that, at least from that point of view, explains the thing. So I did it. I said, okay, let me go now to these 3 cases. I took the hysteresis loop at 7 nodes, even further from the crack tip, in order to get to kind of reasonable strain and stresses. And I compared the hysteresis loop for identical cycles for the stationary crack, fatigue crack before overload, and fatigue crack after overload. And what you see is that the stress ranges, as you see, the blue one is the stationary crack, that one is constant amplitude fatigue crack, that the stress ranges are almost the same, and even the strain ranges don't differ, but these are mostly elastic strains, where here there is a lot of plasticity. After overload, the same cycle was causing almost no plasticity at all. We measured the same strain, but it was mostly elastic. The hysteresis loop was almost 0 thickness. And I think that's why it shows why the displacement didn't change, because it was hard particle put. The plastic zone didn't have chance to expand. So after that, Mark Croft and Professor Tsakhalakos from Rutgers University measured those strains. So actually it was done simultaneously. And this is what you see for the same experiment, the same specimen, the same material, the same crack length. These are the maximum strains and minimum elastic strains before overload. and those are after overload. So what we get here, that overload reduced the maximum elastic strain ahead of the crack tip in a significant way. This experiment showed that there was also a reduction of minimum elastic strain, but if you put the total strain together with stresses, you see very little change on stresses. So that was kind of qualitatively confirming what I was doing, because the hysteresis loop which I was showing were the elastoplastic strain. Here we see only the elastic strain. And in order to just see further that in terms of stresses, strain ranges, there is some changes from here to there. You see very clearly that that change in strain is significant because it's on the almost flat part of the stress strain curve. So what we are saying that the elastic strains are almost the same, but does it mean that the elastoplastic strains will be the same? So when you look at elasticity, you may see, oh, it's the same range. But if you take the triaxiality into account and plot the stress strain loop, that loop will be much more narrow for the red case than for the blue case. And I think I will stop at this moment. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.